Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender Ed, Blender HD if you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Friday, June 16th. And you know what we do on Fridays? We fight, right? Not amongst ourselves, of course, right? We talk about the UFC card tomorrow, Saturday, in the Apex, I believe, right? Normal time, I think 7 o'clock start time Eastern. 7 o'clock at night. So you got plenty of time during the day to make your lineups, but we're not fighting. We never fight. I don't think we rarely fight in the YouTube chat. We always have nice people here. Wataz, Defik, Mike Ostry, Jay Simmons, Bart B. Good morning. Good morning. Hit the thumbs. Come on, it's required. I don't know. It's not really required, but I want to make it sound like it's required, right? Please do it. Do it. It helps us out. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it helps you out. Whatever. I'm asking for it. Do it anyway. Accidentally hit it. It doesn't matter to us. This is some free content. I think this is the only free MMA content that we do here at RotoGrinders. If you want the Ground and Pound podcast that should come out today, Mike and Liam breaking down the fights. If you want our projections, ownership, expert survey, everything for MMA, just get a combo premium subscription to RotoGrinders. You'll get that. You'll get PGA. You'll get MLB. You'll get, well, eventually back NBA, NFL, college sports. That'll be coming back soon. Soccer, right? We're international soccer and Premier League when that comes back in August. You get everything. So click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. You get all that content. So for this UFC card, I tweeted this yesterday, right? I was looking forward. To this card, to this slate, right? 14 fights. Finally, right? We've had all these slates, dropouts and whatever, 11 fights. Like, okay, I want something where, there's a lot more combinations available to build lineups that are, if not unique, at least under 5 dupes. 14 fights. Okay, we got it. And with some of the spreads are, within 2-1. They're not like ridiculous favorites. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it, UFC. No, they can't give us anything nice. They can never give us anything nice. All right, so 2 fights dropped out yesterday. We had the Ronnie Barcelos, Miles John's fight. That's gone. And then the Zuma Gulov whatever fight. Who's he fighting? Bunes. Buna. He. I think he's getting pegged for some drug violation or something. USADA something. Whatever. Some test didn't come back, so he's done. Right. And Zuma Gulov, like in the past 2 years, is like his opponent has dropped out. Like it seems like 8 times. Anytime that he schedules a fight. So that fight, he got a replacement, but that fight's going to be on next week's card. Which I'd rather him on this card because typically I fade Zuma Gulov fights because they tend to go to decision and they tend to be a little bit slower. So we don't get that. So now we're down to 12 fights. Oh, well. Okay, I guess it's better than 11. Definitely better than 9 or 10. But still, it's like, I want 15 fights. Give me 15 fights. Schedule 40 of them. I don't care. So that we get 15 by the end. But now it doesn't happen. So 12 fights. So I guess it's a mid-size card, right? It's not small. It's not large, but it's mid-size. So what we always talk about here every Friday when it comes to MMA, right? Since there are limited options in MMA and you're playing large field GPPs, I mean, one of the primary priorities is being less duplicated, right? And it's much more likely that the winning lineup is also going to be the nut lineup. Not always, but most likely going to be the nut line, the best possible combination of fighters. And how do we determine the probability, how that probability leans on what the nut lineup will look like? The 2 contextual variables. We talk about this every week. Hope you tune in, right? Subscribe if you're new here. The 2 contextual variables are the size of the slate and the spreads of the fights. Okay, size of the slate, 12. Okay. Mid-range. If the slate's very big, finishing ability, ceiling ability, especially for underdogs, is much more important, right? When you have 15 fights, 30 fighters, some underdog putting up like 86 points in a win, Well, there's going to be a lot of fighters that are available to beat that score. Just lower the amount of fights, with that 9 fights, like just simply winning a fight, it could be optimal, right? Could be in the nut lineup. So we're in like this mid zone, 12. So yeah, especially for underdogs, you want to probably weigh ceiling, I would say normally, right? Right. Could you take a Gabriela Fernandez win? Could that be optimal? But maybe on a slate where not many of the dogs win at all. But I don't even think it's that slate. And that's why we look at the spreads of the fights, right? Because the DraftKings will price the fights pretty much similarly like every week based on the money line, right? The higher the money line, the higher the salary. The lower the money line, the lower the salary. And they're just going to do it in order, even if the differences between the money lines isn't that dramatic, right? So we see some slates where the $9,200 fighters is minus 185, right? Like it's not that not even a 2-to-1 favorite. And then we see some cards where there's so many big favorites that $8,500 fighter is minus 235, right? It's like, okay, there's not most of these favorites are going to win probabilistically. So on this slate, it's a weird little mix of both, right? Essentially, most of these fights are under 2-to-1s or 2-to-1s or less. Like Salikov and Sabatini are 2-to-1s. Costa's a little bit more than that, right? Blade is a little bit more than 2-to-1. And then we have the humongous favorite, Arman Tsarukyan at 9,800, who's a minus 1,000 favorite, right? 91% win probability. Okay. So it's like a little bit of a mix, but he's 9,800. So it's not just a matter of him winning. Does he put up enough points that in order to fit him into lineups that he ends up being in the nut lineup? It's quite possible Tsarukyan could put up 110 points and not make the optimal lineup, right? Still make a good lineup, but not the nut lineup. So to me, that's the consideration with his price tag at 9,800. But other than that, we have like Bukauskas minus 187, Torres minus 180 at 8,900, Ronnie Lawrence 8,700 minus 190, Quinones is minus 135 and he's 8,800. So it's like the kind of once you get down here, these fights are a little bit closer than maybe the price tag suggests. So when it comes to the spreads of the fights, the closer the fights are, right? More of the fights are, the less and less salary those types of lineups become a little bit closer to if you spend 50K in salary. Because obviously, the more salary you spend, the more win probability you typically get, because that's how DraftKings, prices fighters. Of course, not the method of victory or how well they score, but whether or not they'll win the fight. So if there's a lot of close matchups and they're still pricing them at like 9,000, 7,200, it's much more viable that the $7,200 fighter wins. And maybe a lineup that leaves 2,000 on the table ends up being the nut lineup. 3 underdogs win, 4 underdogs win, and 2 or 3 of them win big, over 100 points. Like that's when you have nut lineup 47-2 or something. But on slates where like you don't see many underdogs winning, that's in order to get the winning fighters with good scores, you need to spend the salary, and the nut lineup will be much closer to 50K. Phil Lower in chat says, is fading Tsarukyan a good idea? There's no good ideas or bad ideas. Okay? Phil must be new here. It's a matter of, if you play Tsarukyan, what does the rest of your lineup look like? And if you don't play Tsarukyan, what does your lineup look like? Both are fine, right? Tsarukyan is going to be the highest owned fighter on the slate, even at 9,800. I have him at 62% owned, projected owned. It's somewhere around there. So remember, 62% of the lineups are going to have him in there. So like if you're going to go plug in, let's say Tsarukyan, right? We take a look at like Manuel Torres. Like the most popular construction is going to be one 9K fighter, and then a bunch of in the middles, right? So like Torres, Lawrence, like Vittori, right? Bondar, and 6,700, maybe Fernandez, right? It's like this is going to be like a popular construction. Taking Tsarukyan, taking 2 or even 3 8K fighters, including one of the main event fighters, right? We have Cannonier and Vettori. That, assuming Cannonier doesn't knock Vettori out early, that fight should go pretty decently. Vettori's really, I don't know, really not known as, complete finisher, even though Cannonier has been knocked down a bunch. He's more likely to wrestle Vettori, but, I mean, we've seen a lot of his fights where he probably should be wrestling and he doesn't, but he's not bad on the feet either. But most likely it'll be some type of lineup like this. Sarukian, Torres, Lawrence, Vettori, Bondar, Fernandez. And maybe if you don't play like Bondar, you're playing like Lucas Almeida instead, and 7,500 is maybe playing Kyung Ho Kang here because you're not going to play Argueta against Lawrence, right? Something like this, right? 234%. What we have currently at projected ownership here at RotoGrinders. Like, you don't want to play this lineup. It's not like if you're going to play Sarukian, don't play this lineup, right? Look at the ownership sum. Look at the ownership product. Look how many duplicate you're going to have. This lineup is going to be duped 30, 40, 50 times. I mean, whatever, right? That just completely destroys your EV in the contest, right? And even if you win first, you don't win 100,000. You don't even win 5 figures. You're going to win $2,200 or something, whatever it's split amongst 50 people, right? You don't want that, right? If you're going to play Saruki, now you have to okay, well, I'm not going to play him with Torres. I'm not going to play him with Lawrence. Maybe I don't play a main event fighter, right? You find different combinations, right? You go Sarukian, and then you figure well, Christian Leroy Duncan is going to be owned also. Like Carlos Hernandez is going to be quite low owned with the line flipped like that. And Carlos Hernandez probably in a win doesn't score as well, but who knows? Mondar got knocked out his last fight, so you never you play a 10% on Carlos Hernandez, right? You look at this. Maybe you play Sarukian and one of these other 9K fighters, right? Maybe you play Alessandro Costa, even though he's 34% owned with him, or you play Teresa Bleda against Fernandez at 95. You try to fit both of them in, right? Now you're getting a little iffy. You have to play, like Jimmy Flick. Well, maybe you're not playing. Yeah, Jimmy Flick against Costa, right? Do something like this. Costa 7,800 left, right? You play, Nicholas Moda. I mean, play all the guys against the guys that are going to be owned. Ultra leverage, and then you got 8,300 left, and maybe you play Cannonier or something like that. And if you're going to play Sarukian and you're playing this lineup, then that's fine. Then you're good. So it's not a matter of do you play Sarukian or not. If you tune into the show often enough, you know the one of the top phrases, right? One of them is play whatever you want, right? Everyone knows that one. The other one is lineups, not players. So it's not who to play; it's what lineups to play. If you're going to play Sarukian, you want to play a lineup that's more like this. You're going to have to because you're going to be sharing points with 62% of people. So you have to find points that other people will not have. And then if you don't play Sarukian, now that opens you up. Right now, maybe you can't. Now you can play more of Torres or Lawrence or Christian Leroy Duncan. Right? Maybe you still play Teresa Bleda instead at 9,500, or you play if people are going to play Almeida below, you play Sabatini. Right? Sabatini. You can still play Torres or Lawrence. Maybe you play Lawrence, but you play Moda against Torres, right, for leverage. You have 8,300. Right? You're not playing Sarukian in this lineup. Maybe you still play Carlos Hernandez against, the leverage against Bondar, right? You could even play Vettori, even though he's owned, right? And you got the 8,600, right? And you can still play, I mean, maybe you could play a lineup like this. Like you do have 3 fighters that are projected to be over 30% owned, but you don't have Sarukian in your lineup. And you have a 10% owned Hernandez in your lineup. Like this would be a lineup that doesn't have Sarukian that you could play. Still a 50K lineup, so probably not going to be unique, but maybe it'll be under 10, under 5. As far as dupes are concerned, obviously the smaller the field contest that you play, the less likely the lineups are going to be duped because there's less lineups out against you. But that's how you should be thinking. That's how you should be thinking, regardless if this is MMA or MLB or NFL. Don't think of who should I play. Think of what lineup should I play? What lineup should I not play? So it's not about players. well, I'm going to play this guy, I'm going to play that guy, and then I'm going to figure out the rest of my lineups. Like, no, think of lineups much more holistically. Mike Ostre said, better be a single bullet, also played in every other GPP if you're going to be splitting, $2,200. That's correct. Like, if you're going to play a lineup like that, it would be much better to play them in smaller field contests. If you're going to play a lineup that is predicted to be duped 50 plus times in large field, it's probably not good to even play it in small field, but it's much better to play it in the 555, where it may only be duped 5 times, which is still awful for there only being like 300 entries in the contest, and he's still to be duped 5 times. Now, we talked yesterday on the show about duplication prediction, right? Because a lot of this is tied into salary. A lineup that has an ownership sum of, let's say, 180 for this MMA slate is much different than another lineup that has a ownership sum of 180 that only spends $48,000, or even like 49.2, versus a lineup that spends 49.9. The 49.9 lineup is much more likely to be duped more than the 49.2 lineup. Why? Because more people tend to spend more of their salary. 180% total ownership and 48.8, 49.2, 49.4. As you go down in salary, is much less likely to be duped exponentially versus lineups that 49.8, 49.9, 50,000. So you have to judge that between, you have to include that into your judgment. And there's a tool that I have that I could use that does that for me. And it's part of the theory of daily fantasy sports, the theory of DFS. Oops. You type that in so you can show it on the screen. Obviously, I show this all the time. Theoryofdfs.com, part of the Advanced Players Guide, 10 chapters of audio, as well as all the custom Excel tools that I do use. So you can apply profitable DFS strategies to your contests. So what I will do is I will make tons of lineups. I won't, I think I'm only playing, 50 lineups tomorrow. But I'm going to build hundreds of them. I mean, I could build up to 300 at once in lineup HQ. Typically, I build 600, 900. I build several sets. And then I bring them into the Excel tools and I whittle it out from there. And one of the main ways of whittling it out is with a tool in the theory of DFS for advanced players. It's the duplication predictor, which takes into account that salary dynamic. It takes into account the correlation of based on the projection of what players are more likely to be with other players for combinatorial ownership. It already does that for you. Okay, so I'll show you. So for instance, what I did, all you have to do is here, you could download the players in the slate. You could download all these numbers here. You could download from Lineup HQ. And get it in the CSV and open it in Excel. And then when you build lineups, I just built the top 50 whatever lineups, right? Just the 50 highest projected lineups. Obviously, they're going to be duped a ton. But I built 50, and you could export these also. And you could bring them in. I'm going to stop the screen. I'm going to move over to my third monitor. Right? And I put them in over here. So there's a window here in the document. And this is just cutting and pasting. There's no technical knowledge involved. It's all set up for you. Just press the clear projections button and just copy. Just copy the columns. All you're doing is cutting and pasting into these columns. And then you go to the lineups tab and you cut and paste into these, right? So I just exported and I just cut and paste, right? I already did this beforehand. Then you go to the portfolio check. You can reload the lineups in if you want, and it'll show you, right? Obviously, this is not exact because we're basing it on the ownership. We're basing it on the ownership that, you could change it. If you want to change the ownership, then feel free to do that in Lineup HQ and then do whatever you want in the Excel tools afterwards. But based on the ownership and the salary, here's the projection, the ownership sum, and then the average amount, the median value of what we should expect in a contest. You could change the field size So the main GPP in UFC on DraftKings is 31,372. I'm not sure why this isn't showing correctly, but I'll figure that out. But you put in the contest size and go, okay, this lineup: Fernandez, Bondar, Torres, Lawrence, Vittori, Sarukian, projected for 424 median, which truthfully in MMA doesn't matter that much. 50K salary, 235 ownership sum, 79 dupes. Do you want to play a lineup that's going to be duped 79 times? I don't. But I mean, obviously we made the top 50 lineups. So like these are all Saruki and Vittori lineups. So you can see 82, 75. I mean, out of the top 15, the lowest is 14. 14 dupes, which is I'm trying to avoid that also. Right? So you can see here what all the dupes are. And you could trim the lineups by dupe. You could be like, oh, I want to trim, let's say I wanted to trim all the lineups that are over 20 dupes. Right? I'm not going to get many, right? I'm really not. So let's do 30. Let's do 30. Right? I could do trim 30. And I could just press the button, trim the threshold. It even show you here on the bottom how much of each, fighter you have in this lineup set. So I'm going to trim the 30 threshold that I set. There you go. Trim to threshold. And it'll do that for you. There you go. Done. Got rid of all the lineups that were over 30 dupes. Right? Here's the 30. There you go. You're left with 20 lineups. And now you see you still have 100. Well, obviously you have 100% Vittori and Sarukian. Bondar, you see all your exposures right here. So what you could do with this, you could bring in 1,000 lineups and start whittling them out and getting rid of the ones that are too heavily duped. You could also trim lineups by certain players. So it's like you get to a certain point, and it's like, oh well, I'm trying to get down to 10 lineups. It's like, okay, I'm going to trim. I want to get rid of the ones that are duped more than 10, right? Which is all of them, right? That have one of the fighters in it, right? I have way too much Dan Argueta or Ronnie Lawrence or something like that. Young Ho Kang, right? So maybe I have the dupe threshold at 15. And I'm going to trim all my Argueta lineups. So it'll do the same thing as it did before. Trim any lineups that are over 15 dupes, but only ones that contain Dan Argueta. All the other lineups that are over 15 that don't have Dan Argueta, it doesn't even touch. So I could trim just those, and it'll trim those. Now I'm down to that, and my Argueta exposure goes down. Okay? So let's do this in a little bit more realistic. Right, we're not gonna be playing the top 50 lineups or anything in large field GPPs. So I'm gonna go back to the lineup screen. I'm gonna go to lineup HQ, and I'm just gonna run, just as an example, just 3. Like I'll make it like 3 uniques. So we're gonna get a whole bunch of different lineups. Salary dynamic 0 to 5. Like I could do 4. I don't know if we can get 300 at 4 uniques. But I'm going to do 3. And I'm going to up the randomness to 25, just so we get a whole bunch of lineups. So it's not just like the top 50 highest projected, highest owned lineups. Just to show you the usefulness of the tool. I mean, you would be going, well, I don't want to play these 2 guys together. I don't want to do these. I want to set my max ownership. You could sculpt your lineup set much more in lineup HQ. But as an example, I just want to build 300. So I'm just going to build 300 in lineup HQ. This should take a couple of seconds. Defix says, I like duping my losing lineup so I don't feel alone when I lose. Well, you have to get around that psychologically. Me. I mean, the way that I play MMA DFS, like I lose 95% of the time. Welcome to DFS. That's GPP play. Well, how do you make money losing 95% of the time? Yeah, when I win, I'm winning $50,000, $100,000. You do that once a year, and you're wildly profitable. But you have to put yourself in the position to do that. If you're constantly looking at, well, how do I make lineups that are duped 27 times? You'd be like, oh, yeah, I remember when I split like 3 or 4 times this year. I got 9,800 here. I got 11,000 there. I got 2,200 there. And then you look at your roto tracker and you're minus 6%. And you go, how did that happen? Right? Because you didn't win enough. Okay, I got 216 lineups by doing this. Okay. Really spread out exposed. Okay, so it's like really spread out. So let me export this. Right? This is just an example. Just so I at least get lineups that may not be duped. Right? So I'm going to export it from lineup HQ. You can see it right here. Right? It's not that hard. Right? Export, you get it in Excel. There you go. You just copy all the columns, press the copy button, right? You go there right to the top and you paste it in. There, done. Right? Now you got all 216 lineups in here. And let's say we're trying to get that. I want to play 50 of these. Okay, let's just say. Right? So I'm going to load them in. There we go. Now we're talking. Now we get some that are zeros, some ones, right? Some lineups that are 46. I mean, look at all the lineups at the bottom, like leaving a lot of salary on the table, a lot of Joaquin Silva. I don't know about that. Right. So we take a look at like our exposures and be like, how much risk do we want to have on certain fighters? But me personally, like I'm not going to play lineups that are projected to be duped, more than 10 at least. Right. So let's start with that. I'd rather it be under 5, but let's start with just even 10. Right. So dupe threshold is 10, and I'm just going to trim all the ones that are, whatever. Okay. Now finally this worked up here. So it'll even show you under 20s, 207, under 10s, 190, under 5s, 169, uniques, 130. Yeah, because a lot of these zeros. So yeah, so I'm gonna under 5, 169 under 5s. So give me those. No, not in that column. There you go. No, not in that box. Okay, there we go. Give me 5. Dupe threshold. So basically, I'm just gonna get rid of all the lineups that aren't part of this 169. Right, so you could press trim the threshold. There, done. So you can see the dupes. Right, here's it's sorted by projection. I could sort by anything I want. But now I got rid of all the ones that, based on the ownership that you currently have. Right, remember, if you want to change the ownership, the dupe predictor is going to be different. Well, I think Jimmy Flick's is going to be twice his own. Yeah, well, then he's going to be twice as duped also. I go in here and it's okay. And now I'm down to 169 lineups or something, 174 lineups, whatever it is. I need to get down to 50. Right? So maybe I look and I go, how much Nicholas Dalby how much Joaquin Silva do I want? He's the biggest underdog on the entire slate. These lineups may be fine. They're under 5s, right? They're fine. Right? But maybe I don't want to have have a third of my portfolio being Joaquin Silva. So maybe I'm just going to trim those lineups. That if I'm going to play Joaquin Silva, the biggest underdog on the slate, it better be a unique lineup. It better be. I mean, I want it to be as less duplicated as possible. So maybe I set the dupe threshold to 4 now and trim just for Joaquin Silva. Okay. Well, that didn't move the needle. So how about 3? Get rid of, okay, I got rid of some. So now I'm down to 30% Silva. I do threshold 2. Well, that didn't do it. Most of these are going to be, okay, 1. How about dupe threshold 0? Okay, that knocks out. Okay, I'm down to 29% Joaquin Silva. Right? I would probably cut out some of these really low lineups off, like these 48-8 lineups. I would get rid of some of these anyway. In the normal portfolio trimmer. The Theory DFS has a normal portfolio trimmer that allows you to do a lot more things with the salary, projection, ownership, everything like that. This is just the dupe predictor. So usually I do this in the dupe predictor, and then I don't cut it down to 50 lineups. I'd cut it down to 100 lineups or something, then move it into the portfolio trimmer and get rid of and pick the 50 that I want from there. But I look at this and I go, Nicholas Dalby. It's like, how much Nicholas Dalby do I really want? Right? I want to make sure that my Nicholas Dalby lineups are unique. Right? Get rid of that. Okay, so Nicholas Dalby went down to 25%. Right? I mean, there's 130 unique lineups here, so I might as well just, I may decide to just go down to 0 for everyone. But I mean, but you have a lineup like this, like Petrosian, Kang, Argetta, Cannoneer, Blada, Sarukian. Duped 5 times. 50K lineup, 388. Projection, 168 ownership. Like maybe for diversification purposes, you're like, okay, I don't mind that lineup. Right? As part of my portfolio. So you could do whatever you want in here. And if you make a mistake, if you accidentally trim lineups that you didn't want to trim, right? You could always press the reload lineups. Right? It'll reload whatever is on, this lineup screen. You could have multiple sets. Like I could make another 300 or something and put them on the bottom here. So, I've done up to 3,000 lineups in Excel, and you can see how quickly it works. It's not going to sit there for 5 minutes doing stuff. The more lineups you put in, the slower it'll get. But you see here, like it's like I reload lineups, done. I mean, like a second, and then when you're done. This is all in the format just like on DraftKings. So you could just like cut and paste. You could take that, put it back in, put it into your, lineup CSV file and just upload it to DraftKings and you're done. And you're done. Right? So instead of going through in lineup HQ, which you'll still need to build lineups, right? You'll still need it, right? For projections. You'll still need that. But once you get here, you don't have to go through and go, well, I'm going to make all these groups and I'm going to make all these rules and I'm going to do all. It's like, no, just make a whole ton of lineups that are representative of what, types of lineups that you're looking to play, different styles, different formats, different whatever. And then you just throw them right into the Excel tools. And then that's where you weed them out. Then you whittle them down. Go, okay, I can play this lineup, that lineup. This lineup's too high owned. This lineup's too low projected. Maybe some of these 50K lineups, you're like, that's going to be, too common combinations. So you start getting rid of those. You get rid of the ones that are, that leave 5,000 on the table that you don't want to play. And next thing you know, depending on how many lineups you're looking at, you're playing the 20 max. Like, build 600 lineups and then use these tools to whittle it down to the 20 ones that fit, the ownership and salary and projection that you want, that also amongst the 20 gives you whatever risk profile you're looking for. Because I could play tomorrow 50 Joaquin Silva lineups that are plus EV. He just doesn't win off it. He loses like 91% of the time. And even the 9% of the time that he wins, he may not even score enough points that he ends up being in the winning lineup. So like those times don't count either. So it's like, yeah, he's going to be lower owned than that probability. It just doesn't happen that frequently. So do I want all 50 of my lineups like that? I mean, you can, if you don't mind the big swings playing like that. But me, it'd be like, okay, out of my 50 lineups, maybe I have 3 or 4 of them, but not 50 of them. But that's a diversification preference. That's a risk tolerance thing. You could find 50 Joaquin Silva lineups that, if we played the slate out a million times, would be profitable. The thing is, it doesn't happen that often. So are you willing to lose all your money 90% of the time in order to get the one time where you win the whole thing? If you're willing to do that, that's fine. If you have a big enough bankroll to do it, that's fine. If you're only playing a very small percentage of your bankroll, I think that's perfectly viable. So it's not a matter of how much do you play, how little that's all a matter of your own risk tolerance. As long as you're playing plus EV lineups, it doesn't really matter what the composition, the exposure of your portfolio really is from an expected value standpoint. It's more of how that the distribution of how that gets paid out. Okie doke. Mike Ostry says, I wish they ended the golf tournament at the end of round 1. Yeah, we got the U.S. Open going on. Never works out when way ahead after day 1. Yeah, what's the point of even sweating it at that point? Like, dude, I've been in the top 10, right? In large field GPPs, I've been in the top 10 heading into Sunday, right? So at the end of Saturday, I'm in the top 10, top 5, or when I did play PGA DFS a while ago. And then not even cash. Just like literally not even cash. Like not even come close to cash. Like coming in like in the lower 45th percentile. Like just not at all. After being in the top 10 after Saturday. So like the whole point, like and the other things happen also. I've come in the top 100 with lineups that were like nowhere near in the money heading into Sunday morning. So like golf really doesn't matter. I mean, the cut matters, right? You want to get six golfers through the cut. That's really your only concern as of on a Friday. And then nothing matters until, like the afternoon on Sunday even. Right. Mike Ostre says it only works in golf when you come out of nowhere and all of a sudden have a sweat late Sunday. Right. It's not sweating. It's just knowing that the money in currently winning is going away. Well, it never was there to begin with. Maybe that's a better way of thinking about it. Right. When people said that, when someone is like holding first place in some contest and the late games in NBA or the NFL 4 p.m. games are starting and it's like, oh, I'm in first for 100,000. And then they end up in like 10th place for $1,000. They're like, the late games cost me $99,000. It's like, no, that's like, dude, what happens if we just played the late games first? And then you wouldn't feel like that. You would have never gotten to first without it. So you were never there to begin with. Just you're looking at things chronologically. You have no control over it. So all you're seeing is things play out. When, the guy getting the basket at the end in Showdown, I would have won 50,000 and I ended up with 2,000. Why did he have to hit that basket? It's like, well, how about a basket that was like in the first quarter? That if that guy missed that basket in the first quarter, you would have stayed. You would have won first place. I mean, like, you're just viewing things chronologically, but you can't change the order of things happening. So the difference between not even watching anything, right? You watch all the games are over, and then you look at your lineups. Like, there's no difference between that and you watching it go up and down. It really doesn't matter. If you think of it like that, you'll wonder, like, yeah, I know sweating the games are fun. They don't do anything, right? It's technically wasted time that you could be doing something else. Unless it's NBA and you're late swapping a ton and you got to run stuff. Yeah, sure. But like MMA, like once the slate locks at 7 tomorrow, like there's nothing I could do. Oh, if this guy would have won it, we just happen to be watching the fights in chronological order. But it's no different than me just waking up tomorrow the next day and going, how did I do? Doesn't matter what the order is. I wouldn't have known. Someone would have said, "Oh, you were in first place for three fights, and then this fight happened, and you got knocked out." Okay, what's the difference? If those other 3 fights started, and I was never in first, and I never even came close to it, it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing. And fine, I get it. It's fun to go and watch your things go up and down. Yes, it's fun, but don't let that, at least in future slates, affect the decisions that you make. I mean, I've seen so many people on like Reddit. It's like, dude, it's always a late game. Like whenever I build lineups in NBA, whenever I build lineups in MLB, I always have a late player. So I just noticed that like anyone that wins, it's always with a late. It's like that isn't even true. Just that they watch things out chronologically, and it's more likely that, yeah, if there's 4 baseball games going on on the West Coast, that, unless one of the early games went off for 18 runs, like, yeah, they any of these 4 games have a chance that one of the players is going to be in the first place lineup on one of the thousands of lineups that are available. So the people just take that and go, oh, okay, I got to play late players like that. It doesn't make any sense. It has no logic to it. So don't do it. Don't do it. But what you should do, sign up for RotoGrinders Premium. Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. Right? Listen, get the Ground and Pound podcast. Get the expert survey for MMA. Get our projections, which we'll update. Right? We'll update the ownership probably tomorrow morning. Projections will change. So you get these numbers, right? You could build the lineups in Lineup HQ, one of the best lineup builder optimizers in the industry that I use. This is what I'm showing you what I do. I'm not trying to pitch you on something this is literally what I use RotoGrinders. I used it before I was even a host here. I was a subscriber. So the combination of this and the theory of DFS tools custom Excel tools I have available in the Advanced Players course. 10 chapters of audio. I mean, obviously get the first one before you get the second one, right? This is the advanced version. This is the fundamentals version. I don't want to call it the beginner's version, but you got to understand the concepts in the first one before, we start applying them in the second one. And then this is what I do, right? I build a whole bunch of lineups, trim out for duplication, right? Figure out what my risk tolerance is on certain fighters, and then, submit my lineups and hope for the best. Hope for the best. I hope for the best for you. Not if you're in my contest, right? Don't dupe me. If I'm going to be duped, okay, the better way of putting it, if I'm going to be duped 2 or 3 times with a lineup tomorrow, I hope it's one of you. Okay? That's at least what I say. So I admit that not all my lineups are going to be unique. They should be under 5s, but they're not going to be unique. So 2, 3, 4 people may duplicate me in certain lineups. And if those lineups win, I hope it's you. Okay? Typically, I say, I don't want you to dupe me at all. I want to win the whole thing all solo. So don't do it. If it's a unique lineup, then don't play it, right? You don't know what that's going to be. Whatever. So 7 o'clock lock tomorrow. Me and Mike will be doing MMA Crunch Time a half an hour before lock, going through, after I do actually build lineups, go through and, who's over-owned, who's under-owned, did other considerations on ceilings and floors of certain fights. And obviously we got to see weigh-ins, you never know. We never know. We never know. Someone misses a weight cut, or, 8 pounds over, and another fight gets canceled. So you never know. Maybe we'll be down to 11 fights. Maybe we'll be down to 9 fights. Maybe the whole thing, it just the apex, there's a flood there, and the whole thing gets canceled. Who knows, right? We never know with the UFC. Right? Let's keep it to 12 fight. Now I'm begging for 12 fight cards. Before it's like, okay, come on, 14, 15 fight cards. Let's do it. Now I'm begging, please hold to 12. Hold to at least 12. So then we don't start getting, 11, 10, 9 fight cards with like super 147 way, trains winning, and like you can't find any lineups that are under 5s. I don't want to deal with that. So please, UFC, and please hit that thumbs up button. Give me the thumbs on your way out the door. Hit that subscribe button. If you're new here, hit the notification bell to know whenever we go live on the channel. We got MLB stuff coming up today. We got the U.S. Open. I think Noto's doing some round 2, round 3, round 4 showdown type of content. So stick around, have some fun, win some money, and I'll see you on Monday, where I answer your DFS strategy questions like I always do, Monday through Friday, 11 o'clock Eastern, on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.